It's Electric Drives. Your electric vehicle future starts right now. Welcome to the show. I'm Anthony Algmin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Bob Reese. We created this show to make it easier for others looking to move to electric vehicles, and that's more and more people every day. We're out there using EVs in normal commutes and road trips, and we'll share the wisdom we've gained from living our lives with electric vehicles. Bob, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. It was a really exciting day because I was using a charger and met a guy that had a Lightning that he had bought in Minneapolis, and he was driving down to Pittsburgh, I believe.
So he just had it. He's taking it home for the first time. That's
right,
cool.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why he bought it up there, but he was driving it, and it was the first time he used a DC fast charger. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised how slow he was because he was only pulling about 35 kilowatts.
Wow.
And I was like, I said, because he was using a trickle charge overnight, and that didn't get him too much. But He was very new to the game.
I wonder in the early days if the cars have some sort of extra like cautious, buffer in the charging when it's brand new, like they want to break it in a little bit or whatever. I actually replaced I replaced my own iPhone battery not too long ago, and the battery, it was a third-party battery, kind of a sketchy third-party battery, I will admit, but it had advice around how you condition the battery. You were supposed to charge it up to 100% and keep it charging for another half an hour, and then drain it all the way down to under 10%, and then do that cycle again 8 times before you just kind of charge it however you want. I tried to do that. I think it helped or so. I mean, it's certainly doing way better than my 3-year-old Apple battery was doing. And it was just an interesting process to me because I'd never seen that kind of conditioning of a lithium ion battery like that before. And I don't know if it really did anything or not, but I hypothesize that perhaps the Ford put in some code to say, okay, let's not go nuts with this DC fast charging until this thing has gone through a few cycles. That would be what I would equate it to, because I haven't heard Lightning's having a ton of trouble out of the gate doing this. So it hopefully was an anomaly or had something. There was some weirdness. It was a little cool today, but it wasn't like super freezing. And if he had been driving this whole time, I would imagine the battery's in good shape to take a charge. So
I would have thought so. He didn't really say, and I didn't press the issue, but I said, I was looking at the screen and I was going, whoa, you're doing pretty slow. He says, this is about the same speed as, no, he says, I haven't done a DC fast charging yet on it. I used a wall outlet, and I had gotten a full battery from when he picked it up, which would have been Minneapolis. So it's like, wow, how did he get down there to Rockford area on just that much battery?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive by itself. But
yeah, there's something that doesn't quite fit on this discussion.
Yeah, well, it was probably, what were your impressions of the car when you saw it? Because I haven't seen a Lightning
gorgeous.
In person yet. Oh, really?
It is really nice.
How does it compare to the Rivian?
I think the Rivian has a little more flexibility and so on. I know Rivians tend to be a little priced higher, but they tend to have more bells and whistles associated with them. And the way the batteries are set up on the Rivians with the multiple batteries in them, it's better for off-roading and so on. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. And I know the Lightning is really trying to be a normal pickup truck with an electric powertrain. And
right.
I've heard great things about it. I would love to see one in person. But that is really interesting. There was some Tesla news recently where Tesla decided to cut prices nearly 20% for some of their cars. And as a Model 3 performance owner from 2022, I'm like, no, my resale value has just plummeted, which is okay because now I really can't sell this thing for a few years. So I'm going to just get the most out of it as I can. And I am really still loving the car. I just clicked over 9,000 miles on it. And So I've been averaging 1,500 a month, which is the highest I've ever averaged for a car in my life. Because this is the first
Wow.
time I've been driving this much for a commute every day. So, and I'm going to take a road trip down to Dallas here pretty soon. So that's going to be a fun adventure as well. But yeah, when Tesla dropped all those prices, because they're trying to get the order queue back up again, and they've been just pricing it to what demand would support. And right now, markets are soft. There's a higher interest rates. It costs more to do that. There's still some questions around the tax rebates and everything. And it's reasonable that they cut the prices so that they could qualify for those rebates and stuff. And I get that. And
Right. Right.
they want to sell cars. They want to make as many cars as they can. They want to sell them all. And even though it's going to soften significantly the used car market for Teslas, I think that's okay. I think that's good. If it helps more people like yourself get into a Tesla to help drive, and make use of that and to go to electrification, like, so much the better. I still think, with the amount you drive and the amount that supercharger network could help, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you would buy the
Yep.
ECS adapter and everything too, but I just have to believe that would be one that, for your particular use case, I think a Tesla would really make a difference in your day. Like, every day, it would make a little bit of your day a little bit better. So,
Oh yeah.
I'm a Tesla fanboy, but I do think when I look at the benefits of that charging network and the efficiency of the car, and just some of the things that you would be able to make use of more than a lot of folks ever do with their Teslas because of how much you drive them, I think
Right.
I think it's all very compelling. So something to consider,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I've definitely considered it. I took a look at what you can get because you have to take delivery by the end of March,
Mm,
and spots are filling up very fast. You can't get a 3 long range. You can get
okay.
a 3 performance, and you can get a regular Tesla.
Hmm.
And then on the Ys, you can get a long range and a performance.
Okay.
Both are available
Hmm.
for purchase under the rebate type of thing.
I see a Y long range in your future.
Well, the long range would make most sense
Yeah.
because there's still areas where even a Tesla has a hard time reaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's worth the upfront cost for you because you're going to use that range, and that
Oh
range
yeah,
every day would make a little bit of a difference for you. And that's important. Whereas I could probably get by with a standard range 3, without a
oh yeah,
doubt. I'm a motorhead, so I want a performance car. So that choice was obvious for me. Um, but I mean, it really just comes back to what you need. I
right.
think it's
Today
compelling.
I drove from Chicago to Northwest Illinois,
Mhm.
and there's not a lot of DC fast chargers in the area where I was going.
Hmm.
So I did have to go to Rockford. Now, if
Hmm.
I had either of the Tesla long range or even the performance ones, I could have made it there and back without
Hmm.
having to charge. But I had to charge in Rockford because there's not a lot of chargers in between Chicago and Rockford right now. Right
Yeah,
now.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I do enjoy that performance. I give it my full support, but I also think the long range would be up your alley. And for you, I think you talked about like the Y might be a better fit for what you need to do, and you might have equipment and what have you,
Right.
and just as your primary vehicle, that's preferable. For me, I literally need to carry myself and a laptop bag to and from work. Like, who
Hmm.
cares? And then an occasional road trip and occasionally hauling the kids around and stuff. But we have the minivan for most of the bigger stuff that we would ever need to do, and longer travel and stuff. So that's it's a little bit of a different scenario, different responsibilities, different needs. So I think it's important to think about what that is for anybody, and hopefully the folks listening understand that. And so
Right. And it's a matter of looking because, like you said, the straight Model 3 is just a rear wheel drive,
mhm,
correct? And then
yeah.
the extended range is 2 motor,
Mhm.
and I definitely would be looking at a 2 motor in whatever I do because sometimes, especially with road budgets and so on, they've cut back on plowing
Mhm.
and the security of having all wheel drive would be beneficial. But the kicker that you look at in many of the other manufacturers is that the rear wheel drive may give you 320-mile range or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then you add the second motor, and all of a sudden it drops down to 270,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not enough for even consideration, because I can do just about that with my Bolt.
Yeah.
But
Well, I just have to say, as much as I love all-wheel drive and agree with you, like that's helpful in the winter, as a person who used to run a 3 Series BMW, which was rear-wheel drive, and put snow tires on it, I would take the snow tires with a rear-wheel drive BMW over four-wheel drive with all seasons any day of the week in the snow. That's how much it changes the profile of the car. So anybody listening, snow tires way more important than all-wheel drive, because it's not just about going through big things of snow. It's when it's icy out, it's when it's cold out. The compound in the rubber makes it better everywhere when it's wintertime. And I have been running them my winter tires on the Tesla since November, and I will say it is just, it's like snowboarding. I just can do anything in that car at any time. We haven't had a ton of snow yet, but it's I have so much confidence in the traction that I get with the snow tires that I have. Not to mention the cheapo rims I bought from Tire Rack still look really cool. I'm kind of like, I don't ever want to go back to my Uber turbines on the Tesla in the spring, because I love the look of these cheap Tire Rack rims so much more than the stock Tesla ones. But I'm too cheap to not use the stock ones, so we'll be going back to that when the weather changes. Although we're getting to that point where, like, in about 3 weeks, we're going to be like, it is literally always going to be winter forever. And when we finally give up all hope, that's when the weather starts to turn.
right.
So.
Yeah, because we definitely have snowstorms even through March.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, definitely. And yeah, I won't put the I won't put my summer tires back on until probably mid-April.
Yeah.
Mid to late April is when I'll do it, because you really don't want to put them back on until you're pretty sure you're not going to be getting any ice on the roads. And so I'll be looking at what the temperature is now. This season for us in Chicago has been so warm overall, except for a couple of really bad cold streaks. Like, it's just been warm. We haven't really had much snow. I've only gotten the snowblower out once and a half maybe, and like it's really been nothing, which scares the bejesus out of me, because I always say winter in Chicago goes from NFL playoffs till March Madness. That is winter in Chicago. And what happened last weekend? Start of NFL playoffs. Because you think winter's happening in December. Winter's not happening in December. Winter's not even happening in early January in Chicago. Winter happens by right around mid-January until mid to late March. And it fools you, because you want to think, oh, Christmas time and holidays, and you've got, oh, it's nice, it's winter time, and isn't this cute or whatever. No. Winter hasn't even started. You're still in fall basically when Christmas. That's why we never have snow on Christmas. This year we actually had snow on the ground. It was kind of cool, but it's it's very rare to have white Christmases these days, it seems. But we haven't had a real winter yet, and we will. For sure. It'll either be super cold or super snowy or both, but it's going to be at least one of those. So it's we'll see. But I mean, who knows? We have had some mild winters before, but not like this, where I barely have worn a heavy coat. I'm usually just wearing a light jacket. I'm just driving to work. I don't need a big parka on to walk 100 feet into an office building. So,
well,
anyway.
Does the Tesla have heated seats and the heated steering wheel?
Heck yeah. It's
okay.
And what I did recently too, I don't love the way the steering wheel feels.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that vegan leather stuff, and so I ended up I ordered on Amazon a Alcantara leather steering wheel cover specifically for the Tesla Model 3, and it took a little effort to get it on, little elbow grease, little heat from a hair dryer, but I got it on without too much trouble. I'd read enough to know that some people had struggled, so I just made sure I heated it up good, so it was a little bit more pliable. And I really like it. It's pretty great. I like the Alcantara leather a lot better. And it part of the reason I did it is I'd caught like a zipper or something on the steering wheel and caused a little bit of a slice in it. And so I glued it back with some leather tape, and it went better. But I'm like, I'd rather just protect it. So I bought that steering wheel wrap, and I bought a nice like quilted armrest cover, because I'm like, I'm driving all the time, and that armrest is
Yep.
going to end up getting discolored if I don't protect it with something. So I did that. I'm sure there's still going to be like some wear and tear on like the frame of the door from getting in and out all the time, and
Right.
like
Right.
the where you rest your arm kind of by the window and stuff, but there's not really as much I can do about that. I'm less worried about those are normal, but like I plan on keeping this car for a while at this point, and we'll just deal with it. But I'm like, the armrest, like having it up a little bit higher would have been preferable for me anyway. So having that nice quilted thing, I think it was like $30, and the same thing for the steering wheel cover. So it was fairly nominal, and it was certainly a good investment to protect that stuff. So yeah.
And then what kind of uh, I've got WeatherTech floor mats, which still are not quite big enough in some areas.
Yeah, I have the Tesla like all weather floor liner things that are very similar, I guess, to the WeatherTech ones. The Tesla ones are a little, yeah, they might be a little bit less plasticky feeling than the WeatherTech material that they use. Might be a little bit more rubbery, but it's basically the same thing. It's the super molded stuff that fits
Right.
exactly your
Right.
foot well. And I wish it would go up a little bit higher on the sides, but it does a pretty good job, and they're pretty easy to clean. And so really with me being really the only one who's ever in that car, I pretty much only have to clean the driver's area where my
Right.
feet are, where you get salt in and stuff, and clean that mat. But it really hasn't been too bad to keep that all going. But I'm glad I invested in that stuff, especially knowing that I'll hopefully be driving this for a few years through winters and all of that, just to try to keep it nice. So
Mm-hmm. Where we
and
do
I've been washing my car in the garage with I use a rinseless McKee's
Oh,
37 914 rinseless wash. And so you kind of fill it up in a bucket and use a sponge, and you kind of wipe it down, and you pre-spray it and then wipe it down in the garage, and then you just wipe it off with a towel, and it gets it super clean. And you can do it, and I've done it in as low as like 15 degrees outside, and it really isn't too bad because the garage will shield from the wind. And
right.
it's not perfect, but it really gets the job done well without having to take it to an automated washer or something like that. So that's been the first year I've ever tried doing that, and that's been cool.
Yeah, I take it to the car wash because it's not just the upper body that you worry about on cars, but it's also the underpinnings too, because salt doesn't discriminate. It'll go after any type of bare metal that it can find. So if it's underneath the car, it'll go after that. So at least with the car wash, I can get wheel wells and the bottom of the car and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
It's probably not as good on the paint as what you're doing, but hey, the Bolt's a little cheaper car too.
Yeah, I think it's fine, and that undercarriage is good. Fortunately for the Tesla, everything's plastic underneath, so I'm less worried about that underbody corrosion on that car than some others. But yeah, you can actually buy a hose attachment that does the undercarriage wash, and I'm like, I'm not going to go to that point. I'm not going to ever do that. That's because and like I'm not using a hose in the wintertime because it would freeze, and so like that's
Right.
the other big thing. And so there is a spray and wash place pretty close to my house that their automated washes have an undercarriage thing, so I can take it to that occasionally if I find that there's some buildup, or it's been really salty out, or I even just don't feel like doing my own rinseless wash. I can take it over there, and it'll do a halfway decent job to at least get the muck off, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally willing to do if that's what it comes to. The detailer people that I follow say, if you need to just use a rinseless wash, you're better off using chemicals versus abrasion. The chemicals
Right.
really aren't going to cause problems the way towels or brushes that are used on every car. Those are just going to create a bunch of micro swirls and other issues. So just stick to the touchless, and you'll be better off. And so that's what I'll do when I need to. I know like you use the Delta Sonic, and I would,
Right.
there's a Delta Sonic on my drive to work too, so I could also use that. And that's a good option as well, because those are touchless, and by all accounts pretty good. I haven't taken my car to that yet, but I may at some point, especially if it gets really cold again. That's a good option. So
Yeah, I'm worried. I generally don't take it because I'm on the unlimited plan, but I generally do not take it when it gets like 20 or below because even though it's fairly good drying, you can still have it in the door jams and everything
mhm.
else. And I'd just rather not having all that freeze up and just
Yeah.
wait until it gets a little bit warmer.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually had my my charge port door cover freeze closed on my Volkswagen. When I had that, it wouldn't unlock. And the way it works is that it would have there, like, it twists inside, and there was just, it would just seize because of the
Mm-hmm.
cold, and
Mm-hmm.
that was problematic. I haven't had that problem with the Tesla, which is all kind of motorized. It doesn't have the same like internal latching thing that the Volkswagen does. Actually, I used to have a Porsche Macan, and that actually froze at a gas station when I was on a road trip,
Oh, wow.
and it had froze while I was driving, and it was a pain. It took me half an hour at a random gas station in the middle of nowhere to try to get that charge port, or in that case the gas cap door um open.
Thought
And it
out.
was, I mean,
Yeah.
I called the dealership, and I'm like, what is going on here? They're like, yeah, your stuff's broke, man, it's frozen. So yeah, it was unpleasant. So, a lot of random issues that you get, but I think the best thing is that once it gets below 20 degrees, Bob, I think we should just get the day off. I think we should just not have to work. I think we should be able to
Uh,
just sit at home and, talk about electric vehicles, or save work for another
right,
day.
right. The kicker is that I make most of my money when it's either super cold or super hot.
Hmm.
So well, the colder it is out, the more my customers are happy to see me. So
Yeah.
I just have to make the best of it. Now, I did have something intriguing happen. Um, for about 4 times in a row, I could not use my Tesla tap at
Oh,
a,
yeah.
a destination charger.
Oh.
And I contacted the guy that design, builds, and sells them.
Hmm.
And he said, yeah, he says, just take the whole assembly, put it in the oven for 5 hours at warm
Hmm.
and dry it out because he said there's probably gotten some moisture in there. And I said, well, that makes sense because when I first had the issue, it had been snowing and
Mm.
the weather conditions were bad. And so I'll see how that works out. Yesterday I took it to there's a library in Aurora that has Tesla chargers,
Mm.
and I just hooked it up to that and no problem at all. It worked fine. So maybe that's it, but I'll find out in
Hmm.
February when I hit the 3 hotels that have Tesla uh, destination chargers.
Yeah. So have you already done the oven treatment on it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that,
Because
and
I
then
did
and
it.
then it worked. Yeah.
It worked because I wanted to find out if it did have an issue, if I'd have to send it in or what, because I tend to go in spurts. I've got my first 2 weeks of the month are where I hit 3 hotels for a total of 6 nights. And they have Tesla destination chargers there. And it's nice to have a fully charged car in the morning.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, and that's part of the reason why you select those hotels. I was just thinking about when I booked that trip to Dallas. I'm certainly going to be looking for hotel nights at places that have overnight charging. Like, I want to
Right.
be able to do that, and I will go out of my way to make sure that that is the kind of place that I'm staying is one that has charging available. And
Right.
yeah,
And so you can use PlugShare and just filter for hotels that have charging, and that'll make it a lot easier in your search.
yeah, that's good. That's a great idea. I wouldn't have thought of that. I would have tried to find. I know, like, I use Marriott a lot, and so I would look. And Marriott has a selection when you're searching on their site for electric vehicle charging.
Ah,
And then you realize how few of the hotels actually have electric vehicle charging. Because it's
correct.
often like one in a city. But it's, I'm glad that they at least acknowledge that that is something that somebody's is searching for. So that's good at least.
And then
Um,
you have to watch too, because I know of one hotel that has a destination charger and they charge $15 a night no matter how much electricity you use.
wow.
And it's like, oh, okay, I'll stay away from that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a relatively nominal amount. They're making a significant profit on that $15. Like that's,
Oh
at
yeah.
most you're probably using $2-3, and that's yeah,
But then
that's
they have the upfront cost too to put in the equipment.
sure, but that's one of those things where it's like, how many people does it really take to offset that cost?
Right.
And
Right.
it's not like it's DC fast charging costs. It's a couple $1,000s, which is fine, but like you're also paying, a couple $100 a night to stay at their hotel or what have you. And so I don't know. I just feel like that maybe it's a little bit much, but whatever. Like I'm just glad that they have them. I'd rather them have it and charge for it than not have it at all. So, I think that's fair.
Right. And I found a hotel in the St. Louis area that has both level 2 and DC fast
Mm.
chargers through ChargePoint.
Hmm.
So then they're sort of like hands off on it. They're relying on ChargePoint to take care of the maintenance and all the other stuff and so on, rather than having Joe coming out from taking care of the dishwasher or washing clothes or whatever, and
Yeah.
trying to work on the charger. Or that
Yeah.
charger up in Appleton that I ran into that kept on blowing the circuits.
Right. Right. Yeah. That was kind of wild. That's a concerning electrical situation that they have there. Um, so the we had one more topic for today that we wanted to discuss, and so there was a video that we
We
were
may
talking
want to take
about.
that to the next one.
There is no next one, Bob.
Oh no!
That's our big conclusion, is that we've decided that we are gonna wrap this show and call it a podcast, and there's a number of reasons for that. Most of them are just looking at our various schedules and time, and recognizing that we've covered a lot of the ground that we wanted to cover with the show, and ultimately there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of options for your time. And we know we have some listeners that really enjoy the show, but it's also, I don't know that we see a lot of growth in this, and a lot of things that we want to talk about ongoing. Really, there's already shows that talk about a lot of that stuff. And so while I love talking about this, while I enjoy spending the time with you, Bob, it's also something that I think that we've got to kind of take a step back, think about it, and figure out, okay, is there a market for a show that we want to do, or is there different kinds of opportunities that we would have? I know you and I would love to be on other shows and continue having these conversations in a format that makes sense, but I just really can't keep spending a couple nights a week
No.
doing this after hours if we don't have a lot of reason to keep trying to build that audience and what have you. So I really do appreciate everyone who's tuned in and listened to this. Certainly please go back and listen to other episodes. We're not necessarily going to say that this is the end for sure, but I think we'll probably be taking at least a bit of a break, an extended break most likely, and maybe we won't come back in this format. But I think it's really just we've covered a lot of ground, we've had a lot of fun, but I also think that the time has come where we want to kind of hang it up and go about our ways. So, Bob, any closing thoughts? Any other thoughts that you had about that you want to cover before we wrap this thing up?
Not offhand. Were you going to discuss the Toyota?
So yeah, we can talk about the one other topic that we were going to talk about on this episode was the Toyota. There was a video out there that was asking, is Toyota falling behind, or have they fallen behind on the EV, on electric vehicles, on the battery electric? Because Toyota, being famous for the Prius, really was largely considered the most advanced, the leader in electrification for many years. And even though there were other full electric vehicles out, like the Volt or the Bolt that Chevy's had for a number of years, BMW with their i3, and a few others that have been around, the Leaf certainly is part of that conversation. And then obviously Tesla's, Toyota never really strayed from that hybrid model. They started to include plug-in hybrids with the Priuses, but they've really been slower to come to market with any true battery electric vehicles. And so then the question is, Toyota, who makes and sells more vehicles than anybody else in terms of automakers, are they missing the mark on this? And so you and I had kind of a little back and forth on text, and what are your thoughts on that? And in terms of like, what do you think Toyota's doing, or do you think they have in fact missed the mark on this?
Well, their premise for the last couple of years has been that if you have a hybrid if you have a plug-in hybrid, or just which you can then use it for 19 miles on pure electric mode, or their regular Prius, that your actual gas consumption goes down much better than having everybody going to pure battery electric vehicles and spending quite a bit more for the battery, because the battery is the big stumbling block as far as costs.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're probably right. Like, as sad as I'm frustrated by it. I think they're probably right in the short term, but I think what that leads you to is they end up trailing in full electrification when that happens. And I think that's happening faster than a lot of folks at Toyota perhaps thought it would. And while I agree that there's something to be said for if you can make more hybrid vehicles, many more hybrid vehicles than the amount of battery electric ones, and at the expense of any hybrid vehicles, wouldn't you be better off in aggregate, especially at scale of Toyota, in terms of overall fuel consumption, overall, harm to the environment, or whatever? It's like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. The thing is, I don't ever really think, like, to me, and maybe I'm wrong about this, because especially Toyota has been doing this for a long time with hybrids. I felt like a hybrid is a more complex answer than either a good fuel, combustion vehicle or a battery electric, because you basically have some of both, which means you are basically roughly doubled the complexity of it, because you have both an electric powertrain and a gas powered powertrain. And to me, I'm like, the part of the reason why I wanted the electric vehicles, that I wanted fewer moving parts. I didn't want to have to do transmission service. I didn't want to have to change my oil. I didn't want to have to do all this stuff that I felt like is archaic. It shouldn't have to be that way anymore. And so to me, a big part of going electric was that I wanted more of a solid state to everything, recognizing the battery is important and the motors are important, but with the right engineering, those should last a really long time, and there's fewer things to break. That seems to make a whole lot of sense to me. But in a hybrid vehicle, there's twice as many things to break. Toyota's rebuttal is like, have you heard about Toyota reliability? And it'd be like, oh, well, fair. But like, I'd still have to do the oil changes, right? You still have to do oil changes in a Volt that has the motor in it, or the engine in it, right?
Right. But I think GM found that it did cost too much, which is why they killed off the Volt.
Yeah.
Because you had quite a complex train. And the thing in their favor was that a majority of the time, the car was running on the battery. And it was just a motor generator to keep the battery at a certain level of charge.
Yeah.
So they did figure a way around it, but the costs, I know from a couple of times I had heard, the cost, they were losing money on everyone they sold, because it just was too complex a drivetrain and everything else. Because you had basically two different cars together,
Yeah. And there's probably a transition period where it does make sense, but that time horizon's limited. For sure, that is limited. At some point, we need to be at full battery electric vehicles, and I'm not completely giving up on the idea of other emissions-free vehicles like the hydrogen fuel cells or whatever. Those are somewhat compelling, and they're interesting. I heard Porsche's working on a biofuel that has zero emissions, but still kind of works like a combustion engine does, and stuff like. So there's a lot of different kinds of innovation. I don't think and part of Toyota's point is like, we don't have to put everything in just battery electric vehicles. There may be other ways to solve this that are worth doing. And I can't say that they're wrong for sure. I just feel like they're hurting everybody by not taking a little bit more serious approach in the near term around battery electrics. But that's my personal feeling, and I don't know that that's completely backed up by data either. So I feel like, more power to them. They have the right to their own strategy. They want to be relatively conservative. They want to be a fast follower or a follower strategy. And they know that they have the scale that they can always catch up and implement best practices that have been developed by others and do it in a compelling way and leverage their Toyota manufacturing techniques and things like that. That's what they're best at. And so maybe they want to let this thing shake out a little bit. And then they know with their manufacturing and operational disciplines, they will be able to catch up and do so at a scale that will be very compelling. These guys know how to make good cars. And so we don't want to forget that they've learned over many, many years what that takes. And bringing in a new kind of powertrain, it's not like they haven't been making Priuses for 20 something years now. So like, let's keep that in mind, folks. Like, they know a few things about electrification too. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I find it, I find it fun to think about, and I love watching the market. I've been watching Motor Week now for nearly 40 years, right? Like it's I love cars. I love doing, this, and the electrification story has been something that's been interesting. It's been a fun adventure for me. I just want to thank you. And much of the reason why we even did the show is how much you spent time helping me learn what I needed to do before I bought my first electric car, and help me understand, what does this really mean? What does this take? And for years, I known about you doing the work that you do and the traveling that you do with electric vehicles gave me a sense of comfort and a sense of confidence that I was going into it and doing the right thing. And hopefully we're doing the same through this podcast and helping others help understand that. And those of you who find us and listen to this last episode, go back and start at the beginning, because there's a lot of great information there. And if you're starting your electric vehicle journey, I can promise you, we started recording this in August of 2022. I promise you it'll still be relevant for a few years. And so please listen to it, check it out. It's going to help you in that journey. And it's, hopefully a little bit interesting, a little bit entertaining, but it's certainly going to be helpful. And that's where, I know for me personally, I got the benefit of having you one-on-one and doing that in my own transition. And hopefully we've been able to share that wisdom that we've gained with others. And that's exactly what the purpose of the show has been. And if we find, hey, there's a message that is missing out there that we need to get out there that people can find and benefit from, we'll do it again. We will absolutely, dust off the show and start releasing new episodes when we have something to say and it's worth the time. And we have a belief that, this can help people, because that's really what this is all about.
I appreciate it, because it's always been fun for me. Automobiles have always been a fixture in my life, and I've always been driven by efficiency, lowering my cost of operation, and the battery electric vehicles are just a continuation of that thread throughout my life. So yeah. I mean, it is, I enjoy that. And I couldn't have said it better myself. Like this is a passion. It's fun. It's interesting. It brings together a lot of different kinds of analysis and thought, and, and I don't know, there's just something about cars, right? And electric cars is something totally new, and it's fun to kind of watch all of this happen and be part of it and be part of the dialogue for a little bit in doing so. So we've given everybody a little bit of a plus size episode to end on. Kind of knew that was going to happen. Sorry, I wasn't clear that we were just going to do the one recording and end it. I'd still encourage folks, if you have questions, you want to reach out to us, questions@electricdives.us. That email will probably at least be available for a while. And certainly we'll keep the episodes up on YouTube. We may find a new home for the hosting on the podcasting side, so we'll see how long those stay up. But hopefully we'll be able to transition them to somewhere where we can keep them up for a while. But definitely check it out on YouTube. We appreciate it. On behalf of Bob, we just want to thank you for your time, and we really appreciate those of you who found us and listened to us, especially some of you have listened to every episode. My apologies for ending this, what may seem a little bit prematurely, but hopefully you found some value in it, and we certainly appreciate it. So that wraps up our show for now. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we wish you a smooth road ahead on your own electric drives. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Good night.